You all please join me in Gasham. There are two kinds of Dharma body with regard to the Buddha. The first is called Dharma body as suchness, and the second, Dharma body as compassionate means. Dharma body as suchness has neither color nor form, thus the mind cannot grasp it nor word describe it. From this oneness was manifested form, called Dharma body as compassionate means. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's nice to see so many folks here today. Hi. The passage I read for you today is from Shinran's commentary on a different monk's commentary on his teacher, Honen. So Shinran, again, is the founder of our tradition. He's depicted here on this altar immediately to Amida Buddha's left. And this passage is a little dense, so I'm going to unpack it. Dharma body as suchness, Dharma body as compassionate means. But basically, the theme of my talk today is Jodo Shinto as a path of ordinariness, of everydayness. When we come to temple, what is our spiritual path? I will tell you that it's a path of ordinariness. So in this passage, Shinran is talking about the Dharma body of the Buddha. It's a pretty abstract concept. Why does it matter to us? It matters to us because this is Buddhism. The Dharma body of the Buddha, the historical Buddha who was born in Nepal and died over 2,500 years ago. The tradition says that what he attained, his enlightenment, remains. So even though our historical Buddha has entered Nirvana, as Nirvana is not accessible and no longer teaching, the enlightenment that the Buddha attained remains. And so this passage, although it's very dense, it's really about the essence of Buddhism. What is Buddhism? What is it for us? Do we have access to wisdom? And so Shinran, in his own way, breaks this down. Says there are two kinds of Dharma body with regard to the Buddha. Okay, so you can imagine you're coming here to temple and you're like, I'm a Buddhist. I'm curious, how do we live a life of less suffering? Because that is what Buddhism promises. That is the fundamental teaching of Buddhism, why we suffer and how we can live a life of less suffering for ourselves and others. So you come and you ask Shinran, enlightenment, what's it all about? Buddhism, what's it all about? It's like, enlightenment, Buddhism, great. There's the Dharma body, the teachings, the enlightenment that's accessible. There's two kinds. For this reason, there are two kinds of Dharma body with regard to the Buddha. The first is called Dharma body as suchness, and the second Dharma body as compassionate means. The Dharma body as compassionate means, which is not the theme of the talk, so I'll just quickly go over it, is the Buddha we see. Buddha as compassionate means. It means the Buddha, because of the enlightenment is hard to talk about, it's also really simple. I guess the Buddha gives us ways to access Buddhism. Right? And for most of us, we come here to Jodo Shinto temple, that's with Amida Buddha. And so portrayed the center of our Naijin is Amida Buddha, manifesting in compassion. So most of us, including myself, we have a really hard time trying to imagine the unimaginable. Literally, it's in the definition. So instead, we are given something concrete, something we can see, something we can interact with. We have a Buddha image, and we have the name, Nam Lamida. So we chant it, we can hear it, we can say it, we can see the Buddha, we can offer incense, we can bow. Right? These are all compassionate things that come out of Buddhism so that we can engage. That's one Dharma body. The other Dharma body is the body of suchness. Dharma body as suchness has neither color nor form, thus the mind cannot grasp it nor words describe it. But don't worry, I'm going to talk. We can talk. There's a very famous sutra called the Vimalakirti Sutra, and there's a layperson, he's not a monk, as one of the Buddha's disciples, and he is sick. And the Buddha sends a lot of his best monks to go talk to him. And at one point, they were like, let's talk about suchness. Let's talk about what's really happening in life. What's real? And the first monk gets up and says all this stuff, and the second monk, it's like, that's pretty good, but I got better, and does the stuff. And it eventually goes through until the wisest monk gets up there and says, suchness is not something you can describe. That's it, that's all he says. And then it's Brahmalakirti turn. He doesn't say a word. And all of them are like, yeah, you guys. That's it. Because when we talk about all of reality, we're talking about what's happening right here. Here we are. This is it. This is all of it. Which is easy to do when we're here at temple and we're comfortable and the temperature is decent and the inside smells nice and we haven't been sitting too long. But there's more to suchness. How do we remember suchness in our ordinary lives? In Mahayana Buddhism, so that's the tradition that Jodo Shinshu is part of, the larger Buddhist tradition that I'm part of, suchness is a really important concept. It's the way things really are. Even the Buddha is referred to as the Tathagata. We say this word in various places in our liturgies. The Tathagata is the one who is just as he is. Tathagata, he showed up just as he is. How many of us can be just as we are? We'll get to that in a second. So approaching suchness within Mahayana, there's been two approaches. The one approach is to say a lot. That's the approach I'm using today. There's big scriptures. We don't use them, but there's one called the Prajnaparamita. It's a whole class of scriptures, the largest. In English translation, is like that. And it's basically just an attempt to say things are just as they are. The other way is to use no words, like, okay. So things are just as they are. And I've talked about this before, which means they're measurable and indescribable. Everything that's happening right here in this room right now, no one of us can describe everything that's happening. There's the richness of the present moment goes beyond anything our words could capture. All the colors, the sensations, the angle of every book in every pew, the smell, the sound of the fan. The present moment is immeasurable. So how do we as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists practice in this present moment? Right? In our tradition, we have faith that this present moment is teaching us. The compassion, the wisdom that is present in life is teaching us in this moment, in everything that's happening. And it's very hard to listen to. It's hard to hear because our minds are so distracted. So there's a lot of different ways to try in Buddhism to try to access that, to try to become aware and appreciate the fullness, the immeasurable reality of this present moment. We can work really hard to try to do it. We can overthink it. That's really common. I fall into that trap a lot when I'm like, okay, today I'm going to be really good at this. I'm really going to pay attention. Oh, now I'm not paying attention because I'm worried about how much I'm paying attention. And so your minds can get spun out into it. So there's techniques, right? Meditation is one technique. Meditation is one set of techniques in many traditions of Buddhism to try to help us be aware of the present. To try to get out of all the thinking. That's not part of the Jodo Shinshu tradition. Instead, what's taught in the Jodo Shinshu tradition is the path of acceptance and gratitude. And I think we don't hear this talked about a lot as Jodo Shinshu as a path of acceptance. But I've been reading Shinran recently and trying to kind of understand what is the spiritual path. Partly because I need it, because I want to try to understand in the face of this world and challenges, how can I live this life? But also it's my job to get up there and sometimes give the Dharma talks. And so I want to have something authentic to say. And what Shinran was really getting to in his teachings is to stop striving spiritually, to accept that we have been, we are, and we will be embraced by this life. That we are imperfect, and that that's perfect. And these sound really banal, like these sound like really banal things you might read on the internet, but like it's really hard to do. I found this one of my former student of mine, who's a friend of mine now. We were reading a Buddhist book at the Buddhist book group, and I said, "This just makes it sound so simple." And she turned to me and she said, "My therapist often says, simple doesn't mean easy." God, okay, you got me. I'm gonna remember that for the rest of my life. So life is what it is. It may not be what we want, but in Jodo Shinshu, we are taught to accept. And this is a big challenge because we don't live in a culture and society that teaches us to accept. We live in a culture and society which is constantly poking at us to think about the next thing. Be that, we're on our phones and we're reading news and we're waiting for that, we're looking for that dopamine hit. We want the next news story, the next thing, the next piece of novelty. We want to buy the next thing that's going to satisfy what we've been taught, which is to crave new things, to crave the next thing, always to crave the next thing, whatever it is. TV show, shopping. And Jodo Shinshu actually is pretty radical. Even in the spiritual world, if you spend time on YouTube, if you are even kind of spiritually interested, YouTube will give you lots of stuff, right? YouTube, TikTok will give you lots of suggestions, Facebook, that, oh, you're interested in spiritual stuff. And it's always someone coming on telling you, here is the next thing. Here is the next thing. It's not this thing, it's the next thing. I struggle with this as an academic and a scholar of Buddhism. I have this tendency to think if I just read, and I've said this before, right? If I just read one more book, I'll get it. I'll understand Jodo Shinshu, right? This is a refrain from me. If you're ready to talk. So guess what? That's not how it works. Because that's what Shinran said, don't do that. It's not about what we're wanting next. So a couple weeks ago, I went up to Holden Village. So if you don't know, I teach at Lutherans University. And there's a Lutheran retreat center up on Lake Chelan. It's called Holden Village. You have to take a boat to get to the dock, and then they send a bus down, drive you 45 minutes up gravel roads. It's inaccessible by vehicle. There's no vehicle roads to it. They have their own hydroelectric power. They're totally out of it. And it's up in the beautiful mountains. And I was like, I'm going to teach about, I went and talked about Buddhism for a week. They're that kind of Lutherans. They were like, yes, come talk to us about Buddhism. And I was going up there and said, I'm going to have a great experience. I'm going to be in the mountains and the waters. And I was teaching about this Zen text. I was like, I'm really going to have an experience. I wanted it. And it didn't, Jim's chocolate, guess what? It didn't happen. It didn't happen how I wanted it to happen because I was so busy thinking about what I wanted to happen that I wasn't there present with what was happening. And this is exactly what Shinran dealt with. Right? Shinran Shonin was ordained as a boy, and he spent years studying the most complicated Buddhist doctrines and doing very rigorous meditation. And he eventually got to the point saying, this is it, this is not it. There's nothing here. I'm still who I am. I can't escape myself. I can't escape myself and how I feel about the world. So he eventually left and said, you know what, you just give it up. Give up that endless quest for the next thing. Buddhism's not about something more, it's about not special. It's about ordinariness. And I continue to learn that lesson here at the time. Because I meet folks here, right? Folks who are here, who are Buddhists, that's just their lives. It's not about magical attainment of a spiritual state. There's no psychic powers that come from Jodo Shinshu. There's no magical healing that comes from Jodo Shinshu. You're not going to become a different person in Jodo Shinshu. And I've got a lot of book knowledge, and I've been around the world in Buddhist traditions, right? But the people who are here, those of you who are here in this temple, right? Growing up in this temple, Buddhism is just an ordinary thing. Right? And that's what Buddhism really is about. I was enrolled in a Buddhist chaplaincy training program through a Zen center. And one of the requirements of the program is to have a mentor. So I connected with the Zen teacher. He passed away last year, actually. He was great, Alan Ozan Tsunaki. Really involved in engaged Buddhism. Also, like, wrote and sang Buddhist folk music. Great, really cool guy. I was really happy to work with him. Like, the first time I met with him, I said, Zen is important. Like, I do Zen meditation, but I belong to Jodo Shinto Temple. It's really important for me. Can you be my mentor? And he's like, I love Shinra. I said, oh, he was the abbot of Berkeley Zen Center, and he taught at our IBS. He was going to teach a class on engaged Buddhism at IBS, but he got quite a bit old and then eventually passed away. And I said, okay, I could work with this guy. He knows something about Jodo Shinto. A lot of Zen teachers don't. And he just was kind of paused. He said, what I really appreciate about being around Jodo Shinto folks is they're so ordinary. I was like, and from a Zen master, that is very high praise. That's really high praise. Like, living your ordinary life with ordinary people. So I was grateful to be able to work with him because he really enjoyed reading Shinran, and he had a fair breadth of knowledge of that, so we could talk about that. But I think at a Jodo Shinto temple, like, you're not going to encounter people putting on airs. We're ordinary, and we're ideally all equal. Equal in the way that life is teaching us, that Amida, right, which is what we refer to that factor, is reaching out to all of us. Jodo Shinto is enough. It's enough Buddhism. It's not super well known in the West, but it's about having a mind of enough, right? Knowing I don't need to do anything extra. I don't have to put on special airs. I don't have to be super patient all the time. I don't have to be what this kind of stereotype of a Buddhist or a spiritual person is. That's not what Jodo Shinto is. What we are taught in this temple is to cultivate that mind of enough. Spiritually, it's enough. Nam Godless. That's enough. That's all we need. And I'm telling you as much as I'm telling myself this, because I get caught in this. Oh, what is our practice? You just say, I don't feel any better. You feel a little bit better over many years, over the, I think, 12 years now. As I wrap up, I also just want to kind of mention something. A few people have asked me about this. So I wanted to mention it. So in our tradition, a symbol of our kind of ordinariness and togetherness, which is not ordinary, so it's kind of paradoxical, is the Monto Shikisho. So David's wearing one, Lidray's wearing one, a couple of people are wearing one. It's like what I'm wearing, but a little smaller. You'll see folks wearing them in the temple. They're not special. Everybody should wear them, because they're not special. They originally were an outer garment that they're not a Buddhist robe. So this is a small version of the Buddhist robe. But the Onto Shikisho that Jodo Shinto followers wear here in Japan and around the world, it's a simplified version of an outer garment that people used to wear in Japan. And when people started to wear Western clothing in Japan about 120 so years ago, that garment got simplified. And part of its message is, it doesn't matter what else you're wearing. You have the Shikisho, we're all equal. Okay? You don't have to have a special, you don't have to go through a ritual to wear it. You don't have to undertake particular vows. Just wear it. So that's what the Monto Shikisho is. Monto means followers of this path. And so it's just saying, like, hey, I'm here. I think Jodo Shinto is right for me. So if you've got a Monto Shikisho and you haven't been wearing it, maybe wear it. I mean, they're okay too. The colors don't mean anything. There's like special ones, like the BWA had one made, the Northwest District. That's great, but it really doesn't matter. what they are, because what it means is a symbol of this path. It's a symbol of our togetherness or of our quality. It's a compassionate manifestation of something we can't imagine. And of the two Dharma bodies, the one Toshiki showed, it's like Amida. It's a symbol of something that is so wonderful and rich that we can't possibly put into words. And that's the present moment. So a reminder for myself and all of you that Jodo Shinshu is a path of acceptance. It's a spiritual path, but it's a path where you're going is not as important as where you are right now. That's just where you are. And it's a real challenge in our society where we're taught to chase the dopamine hit of novelty, of shopping, of new music, of video games, all those things. So would you please join me, National? There are two kinds of Dharma body with regard to the Buddha. The first is called Dharma body as suchness, and the second Dharma body as compassionate means. Dharma body as suchness has neither color nor form, thus the mind cannot grasp it nor words describe it. From this oneness was manifested form called Dharma body as compassionate means. Namo Amida.